Welcome to this new review slash analysis of Receiver 2. Receiver 2 bases itself on a different story, but not much different from actually the previous one. You still use the system which was based before, tapes. Tapes actually are as important to find about the story as much as they were in Receiver 1, which they were practically the main organ of the game. Receiver 2 doesn't really change that formula, it adds something else instead to it, which is the floppy disks, but we'll talk about that later. The story of Receiver 2 starts in a world which is completely urban, just like Receiver 1. Buildings, skyscrapers, apartment complexes, and a lot of other fucking shit which you can see and explore by your own. I feel like Receiver 2, instead of making it very simple like Receiver 1, is seriously pushing that thread of isolation. Receiver 2 is incredible in this. I feel like Receiver 2's story also is incredible in this. So let me explain a bit more on the intro and then give you more of an aspect of what we're going to witness with all the new things that were added to the game since Receiver 1, which is a fucking shit ton. The story is that you are a receiver, which simply enough you are finding tapes to awaken, to find your true self, from what was stated from one of the first tapes you find.
Once you have absorbed these tapes, you will have taken the first step towards awakening your true self.
Receiver 2 constantly tries to push you towards a goal, which is to finish and to awaken from your unconscious state. Effectively, I don't understand if it's like an unconscious state or if it's more related to you being ready for receiving some sort of extra information that before you couldn't comprehend, which is a very discussed topic in this game, and you will notice it if you play it. In reality, Receiver 2 constantly tries to portray one of the enemies. In this case, it's the threat. It's practically not very explained what they are or what they do. It's mostly an unknown enemy. It's an invisible enemy, really. It's portrayed in this game, or mostly as much as Receiver 1 did, by using turrets and drones as weaponry against you, which I strongly believe can be a great parallel to be the threat itself. The threat itself tries to stop you from awaken. Maybe it's more on the side of being psychological, and effectively it is. The entire game tries to push the idea the threat is trying to fuck with people's minds.
The threat has been using the media to weaken our minds. They pit us against one another, overload us with meaningless information, and make us cynical and apathetic.
There's even tapes which show exactly that. In particular, if we have to talk about the threat itself and what it does to people, we can pick up a tape called the threat tape. Now, this is disclaimer warning. It's very strong. So if you're not very used to this kind of stuff, skip ahead to this timestamp. Please do it. Play.
Every single day is the worst day of my life. It just keeps getting worse and worse. Every day, I step over junkies and human waste on my way to my third job, just to make a dent in my mountain of debt. The planet is dying. The rich own everything. We keep killing each other for no reason. I'm ashamed to be a part of this world.
As you must have seen, the threat is not a fucking joke. It actually tries and drives people into insanity. There's multiple tapes which stated that people kill themselves over feeling like trash, which is absolutely and incredibly saddening. The turrets themselves, I'm pretty sure, represent that pain that you want to cause to people. The fact that you died, you constantly lose one level to constantly detract yourself from finding that truth that you want, really connects to the idea that this threat is trying everything to destroy you, your psyche, who you are, where you were. In particular, the tapes talk mostly about how to defeat the threat. They talk about doubts, because effectively you cannot trust who they are talking to.
Most receivers are initially skeptical about the existence of the threat. This is a good sign. If it doesn't exist, you will have strengthened your mind and trained your body for nothing. But aren't those goals inherently worthy?
How can you trust tapes when constantly you are stuck in a loop of constant walking to buildings and walking to buildings and walking into buildings constantly with the same loop? The entire story bases itself on a false promise of doing something, well, you don't even know if it's true or not. Floppy disks are a great idea and a great view of what happened in real life, but also what other people think about the situation. People doubting about the threat and people doubting about the guy in the tape, which it's completely normal. People that have developed this entire system, which is possibly another corporate trying to defeat this threat, which we don't even know where it is, but we know it exists. Maybe it's even a product they even made. I don't know. Maybe they're retarded. It's a lot of things to take in. I'm very thankful that Receiver 2 tries to be very experimental, and I'm extremely proud of what they wrote in this. Countless tapes which you can listen to constantly, and you can also re-listen through the notes, and are beautifully well done with this monotone person tries to explain what the hell is going on. And it's always the same person, which means that maybe this person is a connector to the reality that we're trying to achieve. Also because the tapes are the only reason that you are going forward. By the way, voice actor, whoever did it, I know who you are, but I forgot your name. I'll put it on the screen. I am really glad that you did the voice acting. You were flawless. This part of the game, in particular of listening to tapes, it's never boring. The voice actor tries to give empathy and also feelings in what they say. They try not to break the character over multiple tapes that you can listen to. Different topics, different ideas, different points of views are discussed in different types of tapes. And the voice actor does an amazing job at it. I know I'm jerking you off a bit too much on this, but let me move forward. The tapes are written wonderfully, and also they are incredibly informative, but also they don't explain anything at all. At the start of the game, at least for my first 5 gameplays, I was extremely confused and I had no fucking clue what the hell was going on, and I still don't get me wrong. It still gives you an idea of what was happening in the receiver world. Receivers going and try to defeat the threat through some sort of simulation which they are awakened with. And it's actually not very much explained, but in reality it is somewhat predictable. There's not one receiver, as we may have expected in Receiver 1, there's multiple. People are taught and trained to actually become receivers. Receiver can also mean that they receive information and many others don't. There's even a note, if I recall correctly, which states exactly this. That effectively, people around the world have gone absolutely fucking batshit insane to the point that receivers are the most sane people on Earth. And these poor people need to go into intensive training, gun training, just mental training in general. It trains them alive to actually find the truth and fight for a better cause. Ex-military even joined this fucking company just to actually try to fight this off. We don't even know if it's a company. Even in the real world, they had tapes they could listen to constantly to keep sane. It's a very complex mentality. It's a tree with a lot of branches which follow different plots, different lifestyles that sadly in the floppy disks are cut short for a way or the other because they don't really give an ending to any of these characters. They do, but not as I expected. I feel like Receiver 2 gives a very solid story, and the ending was kinda disappointing, but we'll talk about that later. Let's get to the Receiver 2 game itself, as it is one of the strongest fucking points of this game that I cannot wait for you to listen to. Receiver 2 has one of the most beautiful ambients that I have ever seen in a fucking indie video game, period. I am not kidding. I feel like Receiver 2 tries to encapsulate the idea of isolation, of loneliness in such a particular way that does it so perfectly. I felt like it was the most amazing and most greatest feeling of nausea and claustrophobia that I ever felt in my life. What the fuck did I say? But still, it's true. The ambience of Receiver 2 base themselves on urbanistics, which are mainly focused on cities. But the cities have skyscrapers, they have apartment buildings, apartment complexes. Of course, we don't have that much fancy apartments, and I don't think anybody can afford it, and neither can I, please help. Effectively, it tries to represent everyday life through a light of perfection. It's crazy, of course, that a game that constantly repeats itself on its maps gives this idea, but I think that the game was trying to be this way from the start. I think it's for a good cause. What I believe Receiver 2 developers did was try to create a world where repetition was key. They really wanted to drive insane the receivers for this. I have no idea. I believe the threat is also part of the environment, and that's why the developers left it this way. For all they care, they could have just, you know, make it a bigger map or a different types of worlds and non-repeating factors. I don't think they were trying to be lazy. They were just trying to follow what the threat really wanted, to stop the actual player from doing anything. One thing that I love about the ambient is that for every chapter there is a different state. For chapter 1, we see only darkness, a very nice and soothing, just darkness with a lot of lights. Then there's a second one, which is less lights, and it's a bit darker. And then there's the tree one, which is thunders. And then there's a fourth one. And the buildings are on fire! As you can see, the world tries to influence you. It's practically a way to disconnect you from the game, to delete that will that you have. If you see what I mean, to eradicate hope. Oh my god, I had to make it. I had to make a cruelty squad. I had to make a cruelty squad. It makes you feel way less prone to continue. Turrets and drones continuously become more aggressive. It's not that their AI gets better at it, but they become more. It becomes more suppressing in many ways. It makes you feel like you're overwhelmed with this air getting heavier and heavier and heavier. It's amazing how they portrayed this. The most beautiful thing is that they are using what we do every day, what we see every day, as our weapon against us. It's using comfort. Things as recreational activities like billiards or a couch to sit on or a bed or a wardrobe full of clothes and a bathroom has a feeling of absolute and incredible isolation. It just also makes you feel so creeped out, lost, when effectively you shouldn't feel lost. If anything, you should feel at home. They're using something that we use as the city, something that we value as safe, as a weapon. Many people wouldn't say that the city is safe, but for sure it's way safer than the countryside. Isn't it? That is my opinion at least, but of course many other people wouldn't think so. Many people would think so. It is objectively true, the cities are a box which you can live in and not risk to get into trouble with the grandpa on the other side of the road with a fucking shot. One thing that I really liked was the chapter 5. For example, after you are done with all the oppression, it happens that there is light. I actually forgot that this was a spoiler. But still, as you can see, there is light, there is hope, there is something behind it, but it still tries to push you. One thing with the ambient and generally how it feels, we need to also consider one of the things that is very crucial to the game, which I feel is incredibly important, and if it wasn't there, I think it wouldn't be the same. Music, sound. Oh my fucking... The music and the sound is two of the most crucial things in this game. In particular, the sound. The sound of the guns the bullets in the hallway, the beautiful and incredible sound of creaking in general. It's absolutely and outstandingly immersive, which for me is very special. I felt that it was one of the strongest parts next to the music. Anton H. Real, I remember you and I always will. The music of Receiver 2 is focused 100% on the game. It feels like it was integrated into this world from the start. It is one of the most incredibly immersive things that I ever seen, ever. In particular when it comes to this. The music having an electronic sound, but also sounding somewhat tribal, and also pushing intensity per every chapter that just goes on and on and on. The difference of the beats and the flow and the most incredibly introducing tracks, which tries to show you more about the world by not even showing you anything. And that's when we actually try to put a thread from sound and music to guns. I know this is one of the most specific topics that people would fucking love a lot about Receiver 2, but Receiver 2 has one of the best fucking gun systems that I ever fucking experienced. It's so great. Tarkov is probably the only one which I can put close to this. Of course, this is a completely different game, don't get me wrong. And also we're talking about an FPS which focuses mainly on handguns. In this game, there is jams, there is the tapping of your mag to actually load the bullet and rack it properly. There is specific racking, there is safety. You can check the bullet. If it's inside the barrel, you can literally fucking shoot yourself. There's so many things you can do. Some things that even myself sometimes I didn't figure out. Also, you can shoot yourself in the fucking knee. I don't know why they added that, but I felt like it was incredible how well they designed this. Guns work this way, as a normal gun should be. Gun safety first, because you shoot yourself. I mean, I guess.
I just fucking shot myself!
Receiver 2 focuses a lot on the gun system because of course it's one of the main things that you're going to see. The guns themselves are amazing. Every single gun has a different impact and also a different usage to it. Revolvers, for example, never jam, and they're always super reliable. Sometimes you spawn with revolvers which have mags which are completely restricted, and then you're fucked and you have only 3 bullets instead of... So it's like incredible how well developed they are. Reloading systems are great, and also the weapons themselves are great to manage and also incredibly in-depth to actually use. There's no ammo counter, so you always have to check your mag, and you always need to remember to tap your mag. It's very frustrating for a person that isn't very used to this kind of game, and you have to get used to it in a matter of hours rather than minutes. But of course, with the passing of time, you would end up loving it. There's many guns in this case. There's a fucking Desert Eagle, and there's a fucking High Point. There's a 1911, there is a Beretta, there's shit like the Glock or the Single Action Army, which is absolutely fucking dreadful. I have no idea why they added this. I still think and believe to this day that the prototype of the VR version of Receiver 2 should instead be the game itself, but I suppose it would have made much money, and I understand why Wallfire didn't do that. Like, the Desert Eagle is the most fun fucking shit to shoot. I remember when, like, you meet turrets, you just make them flip over when you shoot them and you go... I think it's, for this day, one of the best fucking mechanics that were ever had in a game, and I still feel like many games should add it. Maybe not in this way, and I think a lot of people would be upset because effectively it's a very complicated system, but it plays in a friendly way and tries to actually explain it to you multiple times. They even added a training range for it, so you can actually experience it without having a panic attack while doing it. The sounds are crisp and incredibly powerful. You blink every time you shoot the gun. It's crazy accurate, as the gas and the bang is actually pretty scary. So now, let's talk about the game itself and how fucking stupid it is in many ways, shapes or form. Because I feel like Receiver 2 doesn't achieve some of the things that I felt like they could have easily achieved. One of the main complaints that I have in history in the story of Receiver 2 is that Receiver 2 always tried to play mysterious with the player and actually try to push an idea of mystery and anxiety in who you are and what you do. I feel like they could have ended this on a different note. The problem with Receiver 2 is that it tries to break the fourth wall by saying that the reality we're living in is the real.
If you accept that the threat is real, and that reality A is the true reality, then you are ready for the final insight. In reality C, you have sat in your chair at your computer, yet in reality A, your astral self has struggled and overcome many challenges. Reality B has been this message. This message was a systemic process. This process was an initiation.
They practically created a world and then they said at the end, well, fuck it, it's your own interpretation, now just go off, king. That we as a player are playing in front of the monitor, so right now we can go out and understand that the media is bad. This is another complaint that I had about Receiver, but I also felt that it's a big pro. Receiver 2 uses the threat as a form of mind control. Effectively, the threat is media. We can interpret it as media of today as much as we can interpret it as an entity. But effectively, it could be anything. It could be social media, it could be media as TV, shows, or even film. Everything. And I believe that it may be accurate, and it may be extremely accurate, because Receiver 2 at the end of the day tries to break the fourth wall. So that means that the world that we are living in is what they're discussing about. And honestly, I appreciate that, but at the same time, I would say that this is a mixed opinion in my point of view. It's not that I deny that I enjoy this. In reality, I really liked it. It's just a shame that it tries to portray more of the real life instead of making it its own world. But at the same time, it's quite beautiful and intriguing. After that, I can say that I think the difficulty levels were still kind of insane. It's only because, effectively, Receiver 2 pushes the idea of repetition. It's just the only justification I can give to this game. I'm not kidding. You cannot give this difficulty to a player which is random, and this game is a very niche game for this reason. As a random player, you're pushing someone to play your game and not to die. Giving this idea and also giving a very difficult game which includes a lot of tactics and also a lot of studying and also a lot of random things happening at the same time because the random generated things and blah blah blah, I felt like it's quite difficult for a normal player to deal with. You cannot force players to do this for you. Give more chances to your players, give them more time to realize themselves, make them wait a bit for a real ending by challenging them to do the normal route instead of the easy route. I understand that games like these are made this way to be hard, and I don't deny that. I appreciate that a lot, but Receiver 2 is an exception, pushing you back and back and back every time you die. And I feel like that's why many people were drawn away by this. Outside of that, I felt like Receiver 2 was an amazing game. Receiver 2 is a crazy and adventurous game that tries and spices up a lot of things that Receiver 1 would have never achieved, also because 7 days. I felt like Receiver 2 was an amazing fucking entry, also giving a picture of mental health as itself and giving a picture of reality of today. I really appreciated that. I am a big fan of that and this kind of media, and I devour it every day. I felt like Receiver 2 was a solid,
decent strong 9 on this one, guys. It's really fucking great.
This is a very grateful and a giant thank you to the developers also. I made this review thinking that it would have been very short, but of course it wasn't, and I am very grateful for you to have made this game. Whoever was behind this, please keep making games. You did an amazing job, and I'm very, very glad that this came out the way it was, even with its, defects and such. You can excuse all my complaints with the reality of the game that it is, as I explained before. Because effectively, that's maybe the idea that developers had. I really respect that, to give benefit of the doubt, and particularly when it comes to these situations. And I felt like this game was worth my time. That was very wholesome, and thank you guys for watching. It has been great to make this review. It took a long fucking time. And I put my heart and soul into writing it, and failing completely, constantly, for months. But now I finally managed to make something, and I am very proud of it. Thank you all for watching, thank you all for experiencing all of this with me, and please give a try to receive it too if you would like to. The link is in the description. Have a great day, everyone.
You have completed this initiation. You are now a receiver.